I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to come and participate in this enlightenment session. And even as we start, something I would want us to know is it's more of an interactive. Is the screen visible to everybody?
Yes, it is, Doctor.
Okay, Ciro says I can barely hear. I hope that is clear from my end. Oh, great. Okay, thank you. So as I was introducing myself, my name is Dr. Irene Njeri. I'm a medical officer, medical doctor, and currently in finalizing my training in clinical psychology. And so I was invited by Artina to come and participate in this session where we discuss mental health, self-awareness, and self-care. So as I said, it's a discussion. It's not just a talk. So tafadhali, let's all be engaged in this. Let us all learn. And if you're able to invite others, let them come. Let's talk about this. And I'm sure I'll also be able to learn from all of you. So just getting right into the presentation. What do we know? The agenda for today will basically introduce mental health, mental wellness, and mental ill health. Then once we have an understanding of what that is, together with the common conditions we face or what we see around us, we'll talk about our self-awareness. So who do you say you are? And then we'll talk about authenticity and our uniqueness. Then we'll address self-care, and from there we'll see what next. Moving on straight into the topic. What do we say mental health is? And if I may pose a question, is it the same as mental wellness? Is mental health the same as mental wellness? We can either raise our hand or comment on the chat. Let's make it interactive. I know it's Friday evening. What do we say? Otieno, what is mental health? In your own words. You're muted, we can't hear you.
My network isn't stable, unfortunately.
Okay, then let's just, Alex says he thinks they're different.
I've said nimeweka kwa chat. I don't know whether that is audible.
I'm just seeing mental wellness means you're well mentally.
I've said nimeweka.
Yes, we can see it. Mental health does not suggest anything. Okay. Edna says it's not the same. So let's see what exactly is mental health. So when you're defining mental health, it's a state. It's at a given point in time. You know, it's a state of wellness where we're looking at an individual where you're able to cope with the day-to-day stresses of life. You're able to realize your abilities. You're able to learn and work well. And in addition to that, you're able to contribute to the community. So we have 4 pointers. Able to cope with stress. You're able to realize your abilities or your goals, the ones you set. You're able to learn and work well with others around you and give back to the community. So when you look at this, if I have, let's say, 2 of them and 2 are not there, would I consider that to be a state of mental health? Like if I'm able to cope with the stresses, I'm able to learn and work well, but I'm not able to realize my abilities and whatever goals I set, and I'm not able to contribute to the community. Would I say I'm in a state of mental health? A point to think about. And those who say it's different. So remember, that was a state of wellness. When we look at mental wellness, a state of wellness. When you look at mental wellness, it's an active process. This is where now we ensure this state of wellness, we are able to keep to it day in, day out. So you're able to cope, to ensure you're in a healthy mental state despite the environs, both internal and external. When you talk about internal environments, we're looking at your emotions, we're looking at your thoughts, thinking, behavior as well. We're looking at your physical health, because that's part and parcel of you. How are you able to relate also with the external environment, your work environment, your home environment, your friends and family, acquaintances, and all that. So when you think about all this, as well as how you deal with pressure and that comes from both internal cases and external cases, when you're in a good state of health, which means you're not ill, or when you're ill, are you able to cope with that? Because remember, that falls also under what we were saying. Just to get a pointer, just give me a minute. Yeah, being able to cope with the stresses of life. Yeah, so how are we doing that? Are we able to do that in the both internal and external environment? So now that we know what mental health is and what mental wellness is, so what is mental ill health? What would we say mental ill health is? I think I've given a clue as to what that would be. From the definitions, you can actually just find what mental ill health is. Ciro says when one is not able to cope with pressure or emotions. Yes, that's a good one. Thank you. Any contrary opinion or similar? Okay, let's dive right into it. So mental ill health is the same thing. It's also known as mental health disorders. Commonly, when we're talking out there, we tend to mix up mental health disorders. When you mention mental health, the common question that I get asked is, when I say I'm passionate about mental health and raising awareness about it. So they're like, so your focus is on people who are not okay. And normally when I ask, what do you mean by not okay? And the common response you get is, yeah, so people who hawako sawa, wako Madare and such places, that's the extreme, the ones who have to be in hospitals or institutionalized to get such services. So when you look at this, these are just health conditions, just like any other conditions that we have, headaches, stomach aches, and all that. But these ones involve your emotion, they involve your thinking, and they involve your behavior, or a combination of the three. So for you to have a mental health disorder, a mental health challenge, your emotions are compromised, or you're not able to live with them, you're not able to identify them, you're not able to cope with them. Your thinking pattern is affected, and even how you behave. It may be the three of them at once, it may be just one of them where you're having a problem. And so there's an association of distress or a problem in functioning in a social setting, in a work setting, or even in family activities. You're not able to live your day-to-day life if you were in a state of wellness. So when we talk about examples of mental illnesses, they're numerous, but what we'll do, I'll just highlight a few, then we can get into the topic of today, which is self-awareness and self-care. So we have mood disorders, and the common ones we talk about. I would want to know what any examples we have when it comes to mood disorders. What do we commonly see out there? And as I'm waiting for you to respond, I like the way someone says, I love the definition for mental wellness. And someone said, any condition that affects thought processes, feelings, and may result. Feelings may result to triggers. Okay, that's a good one. Tabitha, you say, could we say when one is overwhelmed, they're not mentally well, or is that a normal? Is that normal to a degree? Being overwhelmed, it's all, think of it as a continuum, you know, it's on a scale, depending on what level. Is it a mild situation, a mild position? Is it moderate? Is it severe? Then the level of overwhelming, does it get to a point where you're not able to engage in your day-to-day activities? I like what someone has said, mood swing. That is an interesting insight. So because of time again, and considering the date is, I'll just get into it. Examples of mood disorders. We talk about depression, which is most commonly talked about. That's a type of mood disorder. Bipolar affective disorder is where we have a combination of what we call a manic phase. Sometimes it's purely just a manic phase, and in some cases it's combined together with a depressive phase. That's why it's called bipolar. So one is either in a state of mania or in a state of depression. Substance use disorders, this we are commonly seeing right now. When you talk about this, is where one is unable to handle whatever substances they're using. If it is alcohol, it's
augire ati ni gender based violence ateo ndakaigire ngania gavana office iyo anga ndakarere evidence ya gavana uga no acokire kanyumba ka mbao kangi makite na
Stella, please mute your mic. Thank you. Then you talk about substance use disorders. As I was mentioning, the alcohol. Nowadays, we're seeing quite a lot of marijuana, and from the just concluded elections, you know, even the name got to change. We're now calling it Wajakoya. And it has an impact, as well as other drugs like cocaine, heroin, which are now more available than they were a bit earlier. Psychosis is also another type of group of mental health disorders. In this one, we have commonly what we call schizophrenia. This is commonly what we see, an unkempt person who picks up papers, who is not oriented in time, place, and person. Anxiety disorders, commonly this manifests as panic, or someone is not able to be around people. So that's social anxiety disorders. People who have a generalized one, they can't, they're not able to control the fears, or the fears are overwhelming. Eating disorders, highly common amongst the teen especially, where we have cases like bulimia and anorexia. The relationship with food is not a normal one. Then stress disorders, again, it falls here. When we are overwhelmed with the stresses or the pressures of life, it can fall in this case. And some common examples we can talk about here is what we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We also have what we call an acute stress reaction, where something happens and it's so heavy, we're not able to deal with the day-to-day activities because of what this stress condition makes us feel. An example of what can lead to an acute stress reaction is being involved in a motor vehicle accident. You know, the experience of being in that crash. Anytime you hear such a person hears a loud bang, it takes them back to that experience, and they're not able to, one, sleep very well at night. They're not able to be around cars for some time, at least until they're able to deal and realize that they're not in the same scenario. So what are the common risk factors? And just to mention them in passing, commonly family history of mental health disorders is one of them, or problems. because of genetics. That's one of the causes that could be there. Pregnancy and birth complications may trigger this. In children, this is where we talk about cerebral palsy because of the reduced oxygen to the baby during the process of birth. In pregnancy, the common mood disorder that appears is what we call depression. At times people get what we call postpartum depression during either after postpartum means after birth. And at times they can even get an episode of psychosis in the process because of the imbalances of the chemicals in the brain. Trauma can lead to some of these mental health disorders. As we talked about substance uses, alcohol and other drugs, medication that we use to treat a condition may also be a trigger to, or a cause or a risk factor to mental health disorders. So now to get to the topic of today, how would your close friends describe you? If someone was to roughly engage and ask, okay, describe so-and-so, what do you think of so-and-so? Whatever they say, would it be the same as what you would say? Is that the same way you would be able to describe yourself? When your friends come and say, Njeri is a very quiet person, but you believe you're a very outspoken, you're a jolly, you're an extrovert, but your friends are like, I think Njeri is more of an introvert, she likes keeping her own company. Is it congruent, whatever your people close to you, whatever they say and what you believe in about yourself, is it the same? And how we get to know who we are, we need to know what our core values are. Once we're able to identify which core values we have, then we'll be able to know what we stand for and who we are. One of the common things I talk about is when it comes to an individual. I'll give myself as an example. So I would say I'm a doctor. Commonly when people introduce themselves, even as I started, I said I'm a doctor and training in clinical psychology, and I'm happy to be here. Does that really say who I am? If I take away the doctor title, if I take away the clinical psychology, if I take away the name, which I was given by my parents, does that change the person I am? What is left? Am I just what everybody would define me as? What do I stand for? How else would you know me if I didn't have those things that were given to me, these things that I acquired? Who is the real me? What drives me? When you talk about values, if I believe the things I stand for is integrity, honesty, generosity, being kind and compassionate, is that what people close to me would say? Do I identify with such values? And just as we could go on, there's a clip I want us to have a look at, and this talks about, could this be you? So let's just have a quick watch and then we'll discuss a bit more. Okay, so we have seen what has gone on in that video. What are your reactions? What are you able to identify? Someone says, I see healthy routines versus unhealthy routines. I like that. What else do we see? What else did we observe in the small video, small clip? And a disclaimer, I'm not saying 96.5 is not a good station. It's just coincidental that that came up. So please, let's not take that radio is a bad thing. It just depends on what we listen to. Anything else we're able to observe? Good choices versus wrong choices. Thank you for that. Organized routine versus disorganized routine. Thank you, Christine, for that. If I may throw in another question, when you compare, I like the Vita because I see myself in both choices. If you compare the same guy, but two different choices, the one who engages in physical activity, if we may just look at the physical activity, the exercises he goes for, as compared to the other person, is there a difference? What is so obvious towards the end of the video? Choices have consequences. Thank you for that. Let's engage. Remember, we say it's a discussion. We're all participating in this. Yes, there were different. Did I see different rest or sleep patterns? Yes. There's one who kept waking up a lot happier. Same life, different choices, different lifestyle. The choices we make determine the trajectory of our lives. Thank you for that, Kilo, which is true. One ended up unhappy. Then someone else said, I think it means our habits will determine our mental health status, even our physical health. If you look at the two guys, thank you for that, Otieno. If you look at the two different scenarios, one towards the end of the video looked sad, looked unhappy. The other one looked jolly, had a well-defined body. The other one had pimples on the face. He was a bit weighty. And whatever we do consistently is what will manifest. So if you're consistently resting well, if you're consistently setting up guidelines, planning our days, if we're consistently eating right, then we'll actually see the benefits of that with time. And I like Martina says, choices we make determines the general outcome and outlook. Very true. Kilo says our lives are directly proportional to the daily choices. Very true for that. And then Shem says there's an outcome in everything we do, both negative and positive. Yes, actions have consequences. I agree with that, Shem. Whatever actions we take will determine what consequences we'll face. Are they positive or are they negative? As they say, when you make a bed, be ready to lie in it. So now, when you talk about being authentic, how many of you exist? Using myself here, the Njeri I am at home. If my people at home would meet the people I talk to in church, would they be talking about the same person? If they were asked, how would you describe Njeri? Would I be the same person? And in the office, am I the same person at work? The way I am in church, do I carry the same values? Do I carry the same beliefs to my workplace? When I'm with my friends, does that change again? Or is it that at home, I'm a jolly person and I go to church, I am this pious, quiet, reserved person. And I get to the office, I'm domineering and, people avoid me because of how I carry myself. When I'm with my friends, I'm the life of the party, And there's as we said, whatever choices we make, we have to be ready to deal with the consequences. So when you have this different, let me call them personalities, but they're not, but these different forms of me, how then am I going to engage in self-care? Will I address the Njeri home? Will I address the Njeri church? Will I address the Njeri work? Or will I address the Njeri who is with friends? So being authentic basically means, and commonly how this comes up when you're listening to a tribute, when you've gone for a funeral service. In some situations, you'll actually hear the same narrative being spoken, how this person was generous in the office when the colleagues talk, when the family talk, they just say, alikuwa mtu wa watu. When friends come and talk and they say, this is a guy you would, or the lady you would call in the thick of things, and they would drop and run to, to come and help. Is that the same thing that people would say about me? Is that the same thing people would say about you? And something we have to remember, we were all created different. We all have different beliefs. Whatever karaoke considers to be fun could be very different to what Apundi finds fun. Karaoke maybe is a hiker. He loves, for those who engage in hiking, there's what we call Team Subaru, the ones who we get to the base of the mountain and they take off. It's like you'd think they're Energizer bunnies. Then you tell Apundi or Nduko or Karisa to go hiking and they're thinking, I think I have better things to do. Hiking is not my thing. Then possibly Apundi is someone who loves arts, loves theater, loves music, and that is able to bring out the joy in her, Nduko could be someone who loves being in the outdoors. So if she was in a situation where the outdoors is blocked, how would that manifest? How would that affect or impact her life? Carissa is a person who loves reading, who loves books and discussing such concepts with friends of a similar interest. So what we have to remember when it comes to talking about uniqueness, whatever form of self-care you choose has to appeal to who you are. I cannot tell you should engage in this as a form of self-care, yet it's not something you would think twice about. I can't come and have a discussion and say, no, yes, physical activity is important, but if I don't like swimming or if I see water and I freeze right even before I even get close to the pool, let alone now like the ocean, there's no way I'm going to engage in swimming as a form of self-care, because every time I get there, I'm getting anxious, I'm getting all these worries coming up, and I end up now exposing myself to stressors as opposed to finding something that helps me relax, and just unwind. And something else, as we're talking about identifying who we are, how assertive are we? Do we have a hard time saying no? Which is a common thing that keeps coming out in most discussions we engage in. If I am in the habit of not being able to say no, I might find myself in a situation where I'm not able to do the work I'm supposed to do, or even to be myself, because I keep carrying the burdens or the whatever is expected of the people around me, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure they're okay, but at the same time, it's causing me stress. So how do I deal with that? Just to go back to that slide, am I able to set boundaries and say, this is what I believe in? Yes, I am a helpful person, and I will go ahead and help, and I will plan for it. How we go back to planning our days, planning what we engage in. So if someone comes and tells me at work, for example, I have a bit of a backlog here. Are you able to handle 2 or 3 files for me? And when I look at my schedule, the time that this person is telling me to engage in in handling the files, I'm supposed to be having a talk or a meeting. It basically means I either delay my meeting or get late for my meeting and help this person, or end up staying late in the office just to help this person clear their backlog, which of course now impacts the rest of what I'm supposed to do. How do I feel when I have to bump my work, or rather put it aside to help a friend, and whoever most likely I'm helping leaves the office right on time, despite them saying they needed help? Will I be helping this person with a grateful, the happy heart? Will I be happy to help, or will I be doing the work all grumpy and upset? Yeah, so it's important to to look out for yourself and identify what your boundaries are. And when you do that, people will realize, okay, if you need something from Otieno, then you need to let him know in advance. If you need him to come in and give a talk, you need to tell him in advance. You don't just rush and tell him, okay, I need you to come and do 1, 2, 3. We plan our time. So once you're able to set that boundaries, it doesn't mean you don't care about the person. You're just looking out for yourself, so that when you're in a situation where you can help, you're able to give what you already have. You can't pour from an empty cup. And so now we come to the main to the topic on self-care. Someone asked, do you then think most of us have different faces? I say like live double lives or triple lives. The different lives we're talking about, does this mean you're not the same person? Do your values change? Does the you change? And Sakwa asked, so we can't have couple goals, hobbies we use to bond. I'm not quite sure I understand the question, Sakwa. Possibly we'll discuss that when we get to the Q&A. I'm just about to get to that bit. Then we can have now a proper discussion and see what that is about. So basically self-care, how we come up with self-care is, or what self-care is supposed to be, is we look at the aspects of life, your physical life, your aspect, your emotional aspect, your social aspect, and your spiritual aspect. In physical, from the clip we saw, sleep was important, diet was important, exercise was important, rest was important, So which form of physical activity are you engaging in? If it is dancing, pick that if that's what you enjoy. If it is going for a walk or going for a run, if it is hiking, pick that. Sleep, it is very essential for you to be able to function properly in day-to-day activities. When you're not well rested, one, your mood will be altered, you'll be irritable, you won't be able to concentrate very well in your activities, whether at home or even in the workplace. Then again, it also lowers your immunity because your body doesn't have time to replenish the stores since you're not resting. And then again, what are we eating? Are we choosing processed foods all the time? Or are we focusing on, healthy foods? Are we eating whole foods? Are we eating a balanced meal? I remember in primary school, we were taught about a balanced diet, one that has vegetable, protein, and carbohydrates. Are we still engaging in this, or whatever we're able to reach to fast is what we are going to partake? And how conscious are we? We saw what happened to the guy who consistently ate junk food and how he ended up, as compared to the person who chose healthy stuff. When it comes to emotional well-being, are we emotionally intelligent? Are we able to detect when we are happy, when we are sad, and what triggers that? How do we deal with such situations when stress is there? Because stress, as you said, is a part of life. There will be positive stress or negative stress. Positive stress is you go through a bit of a difficult time, but the outcome is a good one. For example, like if you're studying for exams, when you're going through that process, it can be quite taxing, but the end result is doing well and getting that degree or that whatever level it is you're getting, the certificate, the diploma, the master's, the joy, So when you're going through that situation, negative stress is the one that there's no positive outcome out of it. But how do we deal with such situations? Are we quick to forgive, or are we the ones who carry burdens and hold grudges over a period of time? And half the time, even as we are failing to forgive, the person we're holding a grudge against doesn't even know that they wronged us, you know. And then how compassionate are we? How kind are we? Once we're able to be emotionally mature, then we'll be able to see how to look out for ourselves. Because remember, as we said, when it comes to mental health, our emotions, our behaviors, and our thought process are important. So we need to be emotionally intelligent. When it comes to social well-being, we talked about boundaries a little earlier. Support system, very, very important. Who are the people who surround you in good times and in stressful times? Let me not call them bad times. At work, at home, your circle of friends, who are the ones who would come to you? And I remember there was something going around in social media, and the question was, who are your four? In the Bible, there's a part where the paralytic was lowered by four friends down to Jesus. You know, they went and could try to get in through the door, but the place was so full. So the only way to do was to undo the roof and then bring the person down to Jesus, right where Jesus was, using a stretcher and string ropes. So who are those four people who will be there for you and will root for you and get you to the best care that you would need, or be there for you when you're going through, celebrate you when you're achieving great things? Social media, are we able to detach, or are we addicted? Are we able to set aside and engage with people? For example, when you're meeting with friends, or you're having coffee or a drink with a friend, do you keep looking at your phone? You know, when a message comes, the first thing you want to do is catch a glimpse and see, okay, who just texted, or start responding. How would your friend feel? Are you present, or is it just, okay, one of the things I need to do? Are we able to allocate time? You know, like when you're supposed to be, for example, spending time with family, you're out with your spouse and children, and instead of having that laugh, sharing the meal, and just having discussions of how the week went, you're on your phone and everybody else is busy trying to see what else they can do. Yet you left the house knowing you're going to have some fun time together. Which also now addresses the same thing about spending time together. Are we engaging in that? Because we are social beings. Even the introverts have one or two friends who they're able to associate with. This, however, doesn't mean that spending time alone is not essential. We'll actually cover it in the spiritual well-being. When you're in a situation where we need help, do we quickly ask for help, or do we ruminate on the issue until we really, really can't? And people actually now are the ones who come in and say, okay, you seem to be struggling. And even when they approach us, are we willing to accept the help? And when you look at now spiritual well-being, are you comfortable spending time alone? And if I may pose a question here, being alone, is it the same as being lonely? Can you be alone and not lonely? What do we think? Can you be alone and not lonely? Esther says yes. That's a good one. Alex says yes. Yes, you can be alone and not lonely. And I'm happy we are on the same page on this one. Christine says, no, being alone is being self-aware and focusing on oneself. This is really great. Basically what it is I'm comfortable in my own skin. You know, I'm able to spend time alone, recollect, reflect. What we commonly say kujiita kamkutano, you know, spending that time to look at, okay, where am I at? Am I happy? What is making me not feel fulfilled? What is making me feel restless? What is making me not achieve whatever goals I've set? And what changes can I bring? Do I like the steps I've taken? For example, if I've started exercising and it's been 3 weeks, how do I feel now? Do I think it's beneficial? And is it something I want to continue engaging in? That's when you're able to do the checks and balances. And at times, just sitting alone and listening to music, if that's what you enjoy, it's able to just, replenish, like refill your cup, if I may say that. Meditation, yoga, those who enjoy that, having a connection with nature, going for that walk. If you're an outdoorsy person, if you like writing, journaling, and being in that sacred space where you are with your creator and just having that conversation with your maker, I'll be able to engage in all these things. So it's important to realize that being alone is actually necessary, because that's when you're able to identify what are the things that trigger you. You're able to find what are the things that make you happy, so that when other people come into your life, you don't depend on them for happiness. You don't depend on them for you to get fulfillment. Christine says, but being lonely is one's desire to be in company of others, but unable to. Thank you for that insight, Christine. So you can be alone, as Kilo says. Alone is being content by thyself. Lonely is missing something or someone. It's depending externally to find validation, which is really powerful. Thank you, Kilo, for that. Do we have to wait for external people to validate us? And a common question I like asking is, when you do something, for example, in the office, and you've surpassed your targets, you're being celebrated by everyone, you're being awarded, how do you reward yourself? Do you have a personal reward mechanism? If you're able to achieve those goals, whether people in the office recognize or not, do you go back and pat yourself in the back and say, congratulations, you did this? Or do we forget that we also like being appreciated? And that's one really big aspect of human beings. Appreciation is a very big aspect. And at the same time, when we are not able to meet our targets, when you're not able to achieve our goals, when we do something that is disappointing, how do we process that? Do we remember to forgive ourselves? Are we quick to sit back, analyze, and identify that, yes, I went wrong, this and this could have been done better? Do we beat ourselves up the entire time over and over again, to the point if a similar situation comes, we avoid because of the fear of what happened previously? Or do we forgive and pick up from where we left off? Are we disappointed when we fail? How do we deal with that? I keep talking about the person who came up with the bulb. He failed, I believe, 99 times, but every time he was failing, he kept going back and trying to see, how can I do this differently? He did it the first time, the second time, the third time. 99 times. I still applaud him, because that is a level of resilience that is amazing. It's impressive, actually. Alex says, great insight. I really appreciate, congratulate, or reward myself. I keep reminding people that you are your best cheerleader. You have to be number one in recognizing your efforts. And yes, so that even if it comes from the others, ni marupurupu, if it doesn't come, it doesn't, like break you down. Of course, it's disappointing, but then it doesn't bring you down as bad as if you hadn't recognized yourself in the first place. And one of the things I saw a quote is, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So when it comes to self-care, what am I going to do to make sure I take care of myself, that I prioritize myself? Remember, you are your greatest resource. So if you do not remember to take a break when you're tired, you do not remember to eat when hungry, so you end up being famished, and of course it affects even your productivity. If you're not putting yourself first, how will you be able to help when you're not in a position where you can help others? Something we were taught in first aid is, even as you run to help, the first thing you have to make sure is your safety is important, and you check first, am I safe before I can reach out to help, as opposed to rushing into help. Then you end up having two victims. So how do I take care of myself? How do I focus on what is important to me, so that by the time I'm pouring out, my cup is not empty? I'm able to be more beneficial, more fulfilling to those around me. Remember, in the definition, giving back to the community. So yes, this is something to remember. And no one can teach you how to engage in self-care. We may give suggestions. Your friends may give suggestions, but just from the word self-care, it starts with self. It's something you have to identify what works for you. And I like this. I found this on the net. Time waits for no one. I mean, look at this lady. Getting old is mandatory, but feeling old is optional. You know, is it something you would actually just wake up one day and decide, this is what I'm going to do? You know, this is how I'm going to look at life. Do I look at it as half full or half empty? I like what Kilo says. One can't help if they are in need of help. Take care of thyself first. Exactly. And a common strategy that's said is hurt people, hurt being H-U-R-T, hurt people, meaning if you are not in a state of wellness, you're going to spread this around as opposed to offering solutions. Then someone else says, I struggle with failure immensely, even though I know I shouldn't. Strangely enough, is how much I celebrate myself, but failure does start with me. And as Christine says, just like in a flight, they repeat, put on your life jacket first before even helping your child, because in a state of emergency, you won't be in a position to do that. And so just to summarize, so that we can now engage in questions or discussions, further discussions. This is something, I love cartoons a lot. So when people ask me, are you free tonight? When I saw this, I love Minions. When I saw this, I was tickled and I said, no, I'm expensive because I know my value, I know my worth. I'm priceless. So I'm not free. But this is just on a light note, please note that. And just to summarize it all starts with you. Self-care starts with you, and it is unique to each and every individual. It's okay not to be okay. And most importantly, help is available. People are empathetic out here. There is no shame in asking for help. So there's no point of struggling, yet there's someone next to you who will be able to come in and assist you to go through whatever it is you're processing. Parting short, let's work together and make this world a happier place. Thank you.